Bridget O'Michaels is the author. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Author and leadership consultant, is widely recognized for her expertise in speaking, teaching, and coaching. With certifications in John C. Maxwell and Dr. Robert Cialdini's methodologies, she brings over 10 years of experience in professional training, development, and business consulting. Embracing diversity and personal experiences, Bridget's international background in banking, government, and non government agencies across 3 continents provides valuable insights. She supports organizations in cultivating fearless leaders who drive productivity, performance, and profitability, enabling them to lead with influence and create a significant impact. Bridget, we are so happy you're here. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Rachel, and thank you, Kelly, for being our interpreter for this session. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to first start by sharing my screen so that we can all be on the same page. And let me know if you can see my screen. Good. Oh, well, welcome everyone to today's presentation. And we are talking about leading through influence. And you've already heard from a very wonderful host, Rachel. My name is Bridget O'Michaels. I'm an author and a leadership development consultant. And yes, I'm not gonna talk about my professional background again because Rachel has already done that, but just know that I have over 10 years of experience in professional training, coaching, and business consulting. And 3 interesting things about me. 1, I am the girl from ABA. I am from 3 continents of the world. If I pause for a moment and I say for a show of hand, how many people are from 1 or even 2 continents of the world? I'm very sure there's going to be only a few of us, but I am from 3 continents of the world. I was born in Nigeria, in West Africa, and I moved over here from London, England, and now I am an American citizen. 3 interesting things about me. That's one of them. The second one is I love to read and I love to write a lot. So if you have come into my office, you see I have pockets of notes all over my wall, because I have to really inspire myself for me to be able to inspire others. I read a lot and I write notes a lot. And that's why I wrote out my first book and my second book in the same month. Another interesting thing about me that you may not know, today is my son's birthday. My first son is 25 years today. I know some of you was like, oh, she looks so young. Yes, my son is 25 years today, and I'm here with you. And when I'm done with the training, trust me, we'll go celebrate. So welcome, everyone. And before we even get started, the first thing I would want us to do is to take a poll. And John is going to help us with that real quickly. And if you can see the screen, how would you describe your current level of leadership experience? Just a single choice. Are you an emerging leader, intermediate leader, or advanced leader? I'll just give us just 1 minute to respond to that. Yes, host and panelists cannot vote. Every other person can vote. And John will let us know the result of their poll shortly. Wow, that's amazing. So we have 46% as emerging leaders and 44% as intermediate, while 10% are advanced leaders. So we can quickly see from the gap here where we are in the room. We have 46%. When I'm looking at the screen, I'm looking at the screen where the polls are. I'll say that again, 46%. And Richard, if you can help me drop that result in the poll, that would be great. 46% were emerging leaders. We got 44% as intermediate and only 10% as advanced. What does that tell us? We still have a lot to learn. We still have a lot of room for continuous improvement in our leadership roles and in our leadership goals. Especially, I don't know about you, but what I've come to experience from from most organizations that I'm called to teach and empower, a lot of emerging leaders are being thrust into leadership roles, even advanced roles, without development or without prior experience. And because of that, there is friction in the workplace. Don't you worry, you are in the right space. Today, this is something that you don't normally hear when you hear leadership development. You don't hear leading with influence. Like, Bridget, what does that even mean? So if you hang out with me and stay with me to the end, you are going to be in for a very interesting and interactive session. So how important is leading with influence to you? How important is that to you? So today, here are the 3 things that I promise you're going to take out of this presentation. You're going to learn what leadership is, because everything rises and falls on leadership. Churches, organizations, 500 level, C-suite organizations all over the world, they all run effectively based on their leadership. And so leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And that's how John Maxwell defined leadership. And the second thing you're going to take away today is you're going to learn that the lowest level of leadership is positional leadership. But most leaders fail because they try to lead from power rather than influence. And I'll just quickly break what I mean by this for you. Have you ever figured out how, when you were, maybe kindergarten or Montessori, early stage in school, maybe when you were 5 or 6, and you are in the playing ground, and all of a sudden the teacher passes the ball to Jean and Kerry. And then because the teacher feels that Jim and Kerry have the positional leadership amongst the other children. But what happens is most time, the person that has the most significant influence over the other children will be Sarah and John, not Jim, not Carrie. And therefore, Sarah and John takes over the ball, and all the children wants to actually obey the leading of Sarah and John as opposed Jim and Carrie. Not because they do not recognize Jim and Carrie as, position leaders, but because John and Sarah has the most influence on the team. And today, you're going to find out or learn why it's so. And then finally, you're going to learn the 7 scientifically proven, most powerful principles of influence. But I must, tell us ahead of time, I do not have a command of time today. Because of that, we're just going to focus on 3 of the 7 principles. But don't you worry, you'll have the names and a little bit of the other 7. Okay? So let's begin. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of this before. You don't have to be sick before you get better. That's why we're here today. That's why we always have the Continuous Improvement Lean Conference every year, because we continuously improve our processes and our agencies to be better so that we can deliver results that are proven, reliable, and repeatable. So we're just going to dive right into the 7 principles of influence, which is also called the 7 universal principles of persuasion. And these principles were developed by no other person than Dr. Robert Cialdini. And they are proven tested by research. So, but you may want to ask me, Bridget, so what is reciprocity, liking, unity, social proof? authority, consistency, and scarcity got to do with me leading my teams ethically in today's world. And remember, our today's organization setup is so diverse. There's so many different people, so many different color, that sits next to you at work, and you begin to wonder, well, how am I going to use all of these principles to really influence, impact, and increase my team so that we can be productive, profitable, and perform even better? Well, we'll begin to explore reciprocity from this angle. Reciprocity is rooted in the ideal that we like to maintain an emotional bank account with others. I mean, we prefer this account to always be in balance, in credit. For instance, if I invite Kelly or John or Rachel to my birthday party, both of them will feel a sense of obligation to invite me to theirs. Isn't so how it happens? Oh, yes. Because the holidays are approaching. If you sit down and buy Thanksgiving cards and send out to every member of your team, guess what? I'm very sure that 75% of your team members will reciprocate that gesture. Now, let's consider a much more powerful scenario. We take a journey back to 1985. Yeah, you may say some of us were not even born then, and some of us were born. But in 1985, Ethiopians was facing a severe famine. Hundreds of thousands of people were dying due to scarcity of food resources. In fact, in that year alone, 800,000 people lost their lives. The global economy rallied around to help Ethiopia during this crisis. I don't know about you. You might be familiar with the song, Do They Know It's Christmas? By Bob Geldof. And that song was performed amongst various famous singers to raise funds for Ethiopia that year. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, in Mexico, people were enjoying a good life, complete with sombreros and perhaps some coronas. But then, disaster struck. Mexico was hit by a devastating earthquake. Once again, the world came together to provide support, aid to the Mexican people, raising funds for their relief. Now, here's where it gets very interesting. Here's where it gets interesting. Among the donation received was a $5,000 donation from Mexico. No, sorry, from Ethiopia to Mexico. A $5,000 donation from Ethiopia that was going through hunger to Mexico. So when a journalist questioned why Ethiopia was donating money to Mexico, guess what he said? The Red Cross of Ethiopia offered this explanation and said, in 1930s, the Italians invaded our country and the Mexicans came to our aid. They helped us push out the Mexicans, and then till today, we still owe the Mexicans. It's a very fascinating story, isn't it? And you may go and read it up for yourself, because I tell you, I'm bringing to you today teachings and lessons that is based on research. Despite significant cultural differences, despite all the geographical distance between Mexico and Ethiopia, and spanning thousands of miles, and many years have passed since that event happened, the absence of any direct self-interest and the urgent famine situation in Ethiopia and the sense of mutual obligation overall became, the opposing forces to help them to provide this aid to Mexico. But one particularly interesting aspect of this story is that the individuals who made this contribution in 1985 to donate $5,000 were not the same people who had received help from the Mexicans in 1930s. That's a long time. So the sense of obligation was passed down from generation to generation. And I know, don't be lost here. You follow me somewhere because we're going somewhere. Another most recent happened that most of you will become aware of was Hurricane Katrina when it struck New Orleans. Remember, it was devastating and it was widespread. And then remember that there was a significant amount of aid that was provided in this disaster at one point. There was a man, his name was Christian Kroner. He took the stage and made an astonishing revelation. He proudly announced that all the help provided was free and quickly reached the people of New Orleans. But here is the catch. 80% of the people affected had not received any payment or assistance. None of them. Now you might wonder if this was another instance of a politician trying to showcase their benevolence. In fact, it wasn't. Christian Kroner is Dutch. The Dutch government had mobilized aid faster than the United States during Hurricane Katrina. You want to wonder why? I'll tell you. In the 1950s, the Netherlands faced a catastrophic flood. Guess who came to their aid? Yes, you are right. New Orleans. That was in 1950s. And now fast forward to 2007, there's a problem. And the Dutch came to the aid of the New Orleans faster than even us living in the United States. Now, do you think it's the same people in 1950s that came to the rescue of the New Orleans in 2007? Of course, no. It's all thanks to the enduring power of the reciprocity and principle. The people of the Netherlands, they felt they owed a debt of gratitude to the New Orleans for the help they had received decades earlier, and they were determined to reciprocate. So you can imagine if you fast forward this now to your today's job, to your role as managers, as leaders, especially as emerging leaders and as intermediate leaders. Have you ever wondered why a staff, a colleague, a member of your team who is very intelligent, smart, has been very, having high grades, and high level of performance, all of a sudden, his performance starts dwindling. And you wonder what's wrong. How have you resolved the issue in the past? Now, I'll give you a good scenario on how to address that, regardless of who the colleague is, regardless. Have you ever considered taking that colleague or a subordinate to lunch? That is, send them an invitation to say, hey, Jim, I'd like to take you to lunch today. I'd like to take you to lunch tomorrow. What time works for you? 12 or 1? And Jim gives you a time and you take Jim to lunch. At lunch, what do? You don't bring up his underperformance to him. You don't bring up anything work. The lunch is not tied to his performance. It's not tied to your organization. It's not tied to anything. It's just lunch. And in the lunch, you offer to go first. And you share a little bit about your background and a time when you had a personal challenge that affected your performance or that affected something for you or that did something, anything. Just share of your own, not Jim. Don't you think that when you have done that, paid for Jim's food, that Jim will want to reciprocate the gesture, but like, wow, he cares about me. He's not even bothered about, the work. He just wants to take me out for lunch. Because remember, Jim will be thinking, why is my supervisor taking me to lunch? Why is my leader taking me out to lunch? Maybe I'm in trouble. Maybe he wants to discuss about the performance appraiser, or he wants to do, no. In lunch, you're just having lunch. You're just getting to know Jim better. Because assumption is one thing that you don't want to do as an emerging or as an intermediate or as an advanced leader. You don't want to assume, because sometimes the reason why your member of your staff is not performing again could be an underlying personal issue. And this can be resolved by a single act of reciprocity that is not tied to anything. So this example also highlights that reciprocity isn't confined solely to interactions just between individuals. It can also bind organizations, groups, and even entire societies. Because remember, in the world of politics, all you hear is, you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours, right? That's what you hear. But now we are talking about reciprocity in a different light. And that's why I gave you one example of an unexpected gift. Jim was not expecting that the supervisor or his boss is going to take him to an unexpected lunch to discuss nothing, just pleasantry, personal stuff, not anything that is work related. You're not talking about budget. You're not talking about, business. You're not talking about the work. You're talking about personal stuff. Can you imagine how appreciative your staff is going to be with that singular gesture? And there's so many examples, on and again. And I'm so glad that you have the slides, up in the website later, and it's going to be recorded, so you're not going to miss it. But I want to share one quickly that is very prompt. When you look at fast food today, you look at McDonald's, you look at Burger King. Have you ever wondered why, people say, oh, they want to eat healthy, but McDonald's is still selling so fast? Go to McDonald's anytime, any day. There's still always a long line over there, because they understand the principle of reciprocity. A study was done by a control group. These customers went into these organizations that is listed, on the slide. They all went in, and what happened? They all got a keychain. The outcome: revenue increased by a significant 12.1%. Just a single keychain. Why did this happen? Because most people may not have been particularly interested in keychain, but they received the gift anyway. They did. And what did that gift create in them? A sense of an indebtedness, that they're indebted to that organization or to that restaurant. And so they'll spend more, and they will even give tips. Right? And then, so you will agree with me that when the organization now increased and went ahead and, said, okay, we're going to give a cup of yogurt to every client that walked into the restaurant, the sale increased by not just 12.1%, but by whopping 24%. Impressive. The lesson is very clear. When considering giving a gift, think about its significance and whether it is unexpected. This combination can greatly amplify the effectiveness of the reciprocity principle. I was going to say that again. When you are considering giving a gift to your subordinates, to your colleagues, to your peers, to your co-workers, always consider the combination of, is it significant and is it unexpected? Because this can amplify the effectiveness of the reciprocity principle. And I really want to get you thinking, because you have teams here. All of you come in from a team. You have co-workers, you have colleagues that you work with. Begin to think, as your holidays are approaching, how can you use this one gift that Bridget is talking about today? How can you use this principle to really elevate your team members? How can you serve them better? How can you influence them better? How can you create, an impact, a life of significance within the space that you are in right now? Also, I also want you to do a little exercise with me. If I ask you to name some intangible gifts, what will come up for you? For the luxury of time, I've just put some of them for you. Intention, information, trust, recognitions. These are all intangible gifts that you can give to your colleagues, to your team members. You can imagine when you pay attention, you really step away from your computer and give your colleague attention, really focus. And this is where I really love the keynote speech by Amy Lineker on Tuesday, because she said that it's time that we begin to take sympathy and pity out of the workplace and lead with empathy. And I totally agree with that. Because I often come across some organizations that say, "Oh, we don't do that here. We don't talk about, empathy or love or emotions. We don't bring emotion to the workplace." But if we don't talk about emotions in the workplace, how do we have the emotional intelligence? How do we deal with the mental health that results in staff not being able to perform? And it's using these intangible gifts that you're able to bridge through the gaps that exist in the workplace. And you can foster trust and get buy-in from your team. That you find that your team member will begin to go over and beyond to deliver services just because you are able to reciprocate better by sharing this kind of gifts. Can you imagine? Laughter is one of them. Laughter. How many times have you actually laughed in the workplace? Take some time to have a good laugh with your team members. How many times? I can bet you maybe some, none. Right? So at the end of the day, I want you to leave today with a mindset of giving first. If you say you want to lead with influence, with impact, be the leader who gives first. Because when you give first, you now put the receiver at a place where they have to either reciprocate the gesture or not. But when you become the last to give, that means you're now on the defensive. You now have a feeling that you must have to pay back. And here is a mistake I want you to take, not to make. The mistake is to think we always have to go out there, buy something and give it. No. The intangible gifts are something that is readily available to you. You don't have to buy anything. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost you anything to give an advice to someone. It doesn't give you cost you anything to pay attention to someone, to give them your full attention. It doesn't takes anything to be empathetic towards people. It doesn't take much. And these gifts, when you activate them, they work. They really do. So having the mindset of giving, I promise you, you will hear more yeses. More yeses, and that will make you a much more happier person in the workplace. So let's jump right quickly into the next principle of persuasion, which is liking. But before that, I want you to take away these two things from reciprocity. Give first, always give first. And secondly, challenge yourself every day. When you wake up every day, ask yourself, what will you give tomorrow? What am I going to give tomorrow? It's Monday. What am I going to give on Monday? What am I going to give on Tuesday to my team? What am I going to give on Monday to my coworker? What am I going to give to my boss? Because you can lead up too. What am I going to give to my children? What am I going to give to my spouse? And so let's talk about liking. Because liking leads to yes. Oh, yes. Everybody who likes a happy person who says yes to you. Can you help me with this? Yes. No one likes a no. Nobody likes to get a no. I don't know if you're like me. Even though the no teaches you a lot of lessons, but nobody wants a no. You're happier with a yes than a no. And we're going to take a study conducted from KPMG. Because with this study, it shows that when the relationship was very weak between KPMG and their customers, they had only 30% agreement from their customers. That's the only buy-in they get, 30%. And then they started working on their relationship. And then it decreased to 45%. And the more they worked on their relationship, it's skyrocketed. And will you want to guess to what level? Yes, 70% buy-in. That's what they got from the study. Very exciting. Excuse me, I did something wrong. Just give me a minute. Okay, I'm back. Yes. I don't know what I touched. Yeah. Okay. So very, very impressive. Yeah. But what we're trying to point out here today is what has liking got to do with leading with influence as a leader? What do I have to like people that I work with? Yes, you have to. But before that, you want to be a leader who knows how to build rapport in your business, in your agency, in your workplaces. Because oftentimes, when I go into discovery sessions in organizations, I often like to walk around the coffee room, the boardroom, just to get a feel of, what happens in the organizations. And most times, the kind of conversations that I hear breaks rapport. And when you break rapport, either with a business client, with your colleague, of course, your colleague is also your client. You break rapport. It's almost often difficult to get back that rapport. Almost impossible to build up. Especially when you're meeting the person for the first time and you said the wrong thing in the first 3 to 5 minutes, boom, you just broke the rapport. But here's where it gets is interesting. Because you can meet somebody in just 10 to 15 minutes and you build a very strong and powerful relationship with him. So now ask yourself, is it worth dedicating 10 to 15 minutes of your time to double your chances of getting a yes or a buy-in from your coworker, from your colleague, or from your department heads? Is it worth it? I would say yes. I would say yes. Because the critical insight here is to build rapport before you dive into business, not the other way around. Not sit down to business and then after that, then you now want to build rapport. No, that's when it goes wrong. You're never going to get a sale. Ask the great salesmen out there, and they will tell you, you build the rapport first, then business come later. And that's how KPMG were able to double their sales by 70%. And remember, you can accomplish this transformation in just little as less than 10 to 15 minutes. But you may be wondering, how can I do it? How can I do that, Bridget? Because that's hard. One way is to find genuine similarities, because we tend to like people who are similar to us. Isn't that true? Anybody? We tend to like people who are similar to us. Surprisingly, even the small similarities matter significantly. Let me share a study with you about similarities in name. Even if I don't use my example here, but think about it. You walk into a room, your name is John Cooper, and then you see someone else whose name is John Cook. What happens? Or you walk into a room and your name is John Cooper, and you walk into that room and there's another person whose name is John Cooper or Joanne Cooper. Immediately, because we are humans, you strike a similarity, a liking to that person right away, because there's a similarity in the name. And so the study that I'm going to share with you shows that there was John Smith who received a request from Caroline Johnson, while another John Smith received a survey from Joanne Smith. The key factor here was the similarities in the names. When the survey sender's name was similar to that of the receiver, the number of the survey doubled. So when John Smith received a survey from Joanne Smith, SMITE, John Smith or Smith. Boom, they got a higher level of respondent. So maybe you might have to start thinking about this when you are sending out surveys to team members or to outside of your organization or outside of your department. So one of our team directors, Bas Wouters, he tried this on LinkedIn. So he went and said, okay, my name is not common. My name is Bas Wouters. Let me go check to see on LinkedIn to see if there's anybody who has Bas Wouters as their name. Surprisingly, he found a lot of people with the same name or a little bit of difference in their spelling. And so he sent out invitation, he sent out the connection to them on LinkedIn. Guess what? In a day, he received over 200 LinkedIn connections just because they have the same similarities in name. No questions asked. Because people will say, oh, he has a cool name like mine, so let me just accept him as my friend. That is the same way. If you take a look, I'm not using hurricane. I know that we don't have hurricanes in Seattle, Washington State. That's good. We thank God for that. But here's an intriguing study. If you look into the world of hurricanes, have you ever wondered how the names are chosen? You hear Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Days, how did the names get chosen? But the study has shown that, for instance, there was a hurricane named Hurricane Sandy. That particular hurricane was a staggering 75 billion in damages. And I think the winds they said that year was reaching 100,000 miles per hour. In the wake of such disaster, emergency rain and fundraising were put in gear. But guess what? People who had their names similar to Sandy contributed more to that fundraising. Why? Because of the similarities in the name. So there's a striking correlation between the first letter of a person's name and the first letter of the hurricane. There was a tendency for people to respond more. In fact, if the first letter of your own name matched the initial letter of the hurricane's name, you get a whooping 260% more likely for people to donate. I'm still trying to wrap my head around about that. That's why when I hear a name for hurricane, I go to really study it now. Till now, I do that to see, okay, let me see what the result is going to come back. And so I'm gonna close these principles unlikely to a story about Tracy. Tracy worked in an organization just like you and I. And she worked in a large enterprise where she had a high-ranking position responsible for all the training within the company. She worked diligently and presented a critical proposal to the board. Now, here is the thing. Tracy had a colleague. His name is Brian. And she harbored a strong dislike for him for no reason. But the only reason that she has is because Brian had a strict routine. He arrived at 9 a.m. and left promptly at 5 p.m. But Tracy always worked overtime. She came in early. She felt that she was more dedicated than Brian and that Brian was lacking business ethics and all of that. And she believed that Brian took shortcuts. One day, Tracy now took it upon herself, and approached Brian. And then Brian just disbuffed whatever she was trying to say and really did not answer her. So Tracy took that and confided in another colleague to say, hey, why is Brian like this? I even tried to strike up a conversation about why he doesn't take his job seriously. He just disbuffed me. He didn't say anything. But it turned out that Brian had 2 adopted autistic children. And the colleague was now telling Tracy, and they believe that those children need stability in their lives. And that's why Brian has to keep strict routine, coming to work at 9 a.m. and leaving at 5 p.m. And that the board approved this for him. Tracy was stunned. Remember, I said earlier, assumptions is not good as a leader. She was stunned by her own misjudgment. So later that morning, she decided to visit Brian's office again. And then she apologized and said, you know, Brian, I used to think you were lazy and lacked compassion for our work ethics. But I feel that I owe you a lot of apology and I'm sorry. And then Brian said to her this time around, I am grateful that you shared this with me, Tracy. Thank you. A few hours later, Tracy knocked again on her door. No, Tracy received a visitor to her own office. This time around, it was Brian. And Brian said to her, Tracy, you might not be aware of this, but I'm close friends with the CEO of the company. We play squash together every week. And I happen to know something you don't know. The C-level executives are considering a significant shift in the training programs. And I know you are working on a presentation to deliver to the board. This is the direction they are leaning towards. Wow. Wow. Tracy was deeply appreciated. She realized she had a lot of work ahead of her. She set aside every other plan she had and immediately began to work on the new proposal that Brian proposed to her. 1 week later, Tracy presented her proposal to the board, and Brian was in the audience as she made her case. It became clear that the board was approving the budget almost instantly, an unprecedented occurrence in the company's history. Brian was seated at the back of the room, leaning forward with a smile on his face. He whispered to himself, good job, Tracy. Imagine if Tracy had never offered that compliment to Brian or the apology to Brian. He might still have been in the room, but with a different positive, you know, or maybe a negative posture, leaning back in his chair and maybe have a satisfied grin or something like, good for you, Tracy, right? But the lesson here is praise people, give them compliments. Genuinely apologize when you are wrong. Approach things differently. Because there is more. How can you make your compliments even more effective? Praise people behind their backs. Leaders in the room, if you are listening to me or watching me today, praising your team behind their backs is a very good way to lead by example. Because when you say, oh, behind Tracy, and you are telling John, do you know that Tracy does an amazing work? I am so impressed with her. And guess what? John goes again to Tracy and says, Tracy, did you hear what your supervisor says about you? That will make your colleague, your co-worker, your staff to go over and beyond to deliver the yeses that you have been waiting for a long time. So I'm gonna really, because I need to give you some time to ask questions about all of this. So we're going to really stop here. But I'm going to advise or really appeal to every one of you here. Give compliments about the desired behavior. If somebody has treated you well or has done a good job in your team, give genuine compliments about that desired behavior that they've exhibited. Not about something else, but about that very thing that they have done. So because I promised that I'm going to take questions, I'm going to pause here today and I will have Rachel to check to see if there's any questions in the chat for us to go through.
Yeah, hi, Bridget. Thank you. That was wonderful. And John and I are looking forward to your birthday party.
Thank you.
So the first question you got, how do you work with leaders who lead from power and are not open to or interested in changing their ways or style?
Thank you so much. What a good question. Yes. So I'm going to first of all share, a scenario that happened in that. So one time, whilst we were in England, as I was living in England, there was this leader who lead from power. He believes that, you know what, I got here, through the ranks. I believe to be here, and everything was always done the way he wanted. He never wanted anybody's, input in anything. He believed that the position was his and his alone, and he can make any decisions. And so one day, I happened to be made, because when in England, we had something called be the CEO for the day. And so it was my turn to become the CEO for that day. And so I sat on the chair as the CEO, while the CEO stepped aside and watched me lead for the whole day. And he came into my office and said, "Hey, Bridget," and said, "I hear you are the CEO for the day. So there's something that I have decided I'm doing in my team. And not that I'm asking for your permission, I'm just trying to keep you abreast since the CEO is not on seat." I said, "Okay, let's hear it." And then he started telling me, and everything that he told me was everything he wants to execute, everything about he. So, and I asked him when he had done, I said, "Have you finished?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Okay, I want to thank you first for the time you've taken to do all of this presentation and all these things you want to do in your team. But did you get your team's buy-in?" She said, "It doesn't matter. I'm the leader. That's why I'm in the position." I said, "I understand. But there's something in unity called we-ness." I said, all the things you've said you're going to do here, it's all about you. I. There's nothing that suggests that you are carrying the team along. And these are the people you serve. At the end of the day, what makes you think that your team member are going to collaborate with you effectively 100%? He said the worst thing ever. They have no choice. And I said, "Yes, they do." She said, "Bridget, what side are you on? I don't even know why you are the CEO." He started getting upset and all of that. So much later, when he was calm, I said to him, "You lead people by example. You don't. I know that you have been thrust into this position as a leader, but you didn't really go through the development to become the leader who can lead people effectively. You are going to turn your team into misery if you continue to lead them like this." And then he got red in the face, pulled out the chair. Now he was ready to sit down and listen. And I said, "Okay, we're going to do this differently. How about you go back to your team and have a meeting with your team and ask for input on the way to really develop this project?" Because the project was going to cost the council millions of pounds. Why not ask all of them input? You have project managers in your team, you have tech engineers in your team, you have design architects in your team. Ask all of them, not trusting the position to their face. He took it. I never knew that he was going to take it in the right way. I never knew that. And I was actually scared because I was junior at that time to him. But he took it aboard, and guess what? This entire team saw a different picture. They were able to produce, the project on time. They got a commendation letter from not just from the CEO, but from the board. And that board is also included the EEC or the European community. And I also got a commendation letter for that. But what am I saying today? If you find yourself faced with a position leader, considering having a conversation, yes, you can. Who says you cannot invite your leader to lunch? Who says you cannot have a meeting? Just look into the calendar and say, "Hey, boss, do you have 10 to 15 minutes? I'd like to, have a discussion with you." Let's see if that works. Because most times when a leader is like that, it's because they were thrust into that position without development. I hope that was able to answer your question.
Thank you. Next question, someone is wondering, what are some strategies that teams can incorporate to foster empathy among one another?
Wow, thank you. That's a very good question. In Florida in 2021, December 2021, that was the first thing I said that brought the leader, a billionaire, to his knees with me, because I complimented him that even with all the billions that he had, he was still leading his team with empathy. And one of the ways that you want to lead with empathy is by eliminating assumptions. Because when you start assuming, like for instance, your team's member is coming repeatedly late to work, or they're not delivering, and you're assuming, oh, maybe they're lazy, or they just don't want to work, or they're just sitting on their phone or doing something. Maybe there's something psychologically wrong somewhere or something that is fundamentally wrong, why not have a conversation? Because that's one thing that is missing right now in the workplace. People don't have conversation anymore. And even if they have conversation, they're not genuine. Make sure first that you are authentic, that you are coming from a sincere position, that you are coming from a place that someone can trust you. Like I had advised, when the leader who took the team member to lunch, there was no ulterior motive involved. Why not try to do that? Remove every ulterior motive in your delivery, in your relationship. That's one thing. And then listen. I know this is overflow. People keep saying, "Oh, I'm listening." No. When you say you are listening to me, that means that if I meet you working on something on your computer and I ask you, "Hey, Bridget, do you have a minute for me?" What it means is that you're going to turn 360 degrees towards me. You're going to leave you, or if you cannot do that, you're going to say, "Hey, Tracy, I'm working on this project and I need to deliver it in 3 minutes. When I'm done, I can give you 15 minutes of my time. Is that okay?" And then I can go and come back. But make sure that when you say that you are present, be present. When I'm talking to you, I want you to be present. How do you be present? Little gestures. Look at me, smile, nod. Let me see your body language that you are actually following me. Actually show me that you care. You not just care about the work to be delivered. Show me that you care about me also. Because at the end of the day, people are people. People are the best resources out there in the world. And if you treat people right, I tell you, they'll give you the word. Thank you.
Yeah. Gosh, there are so many good questions here. This might have to be our last one. Being a leader who constantly gives first can be exhausting. How do you continue to be an effective leader if your cup is only half full?
What a coincidence. I just drank from my cup. Yes, how can you be a leader when your cup is half full? In case you don't know, we have something called the continuous improvement team that will meet up at Onipia once a month or even on Zoom. That is what leaders do. They continuously improve themselves. They continuously look for someone to pour into them, because you cannot give what you don't have. When your cup is empty, you will only give bitterness, frustration, exhaustion, overwhelm. You emit all the negativity out there to people. So ensure that you take your breaks as a leader. Ensure that you know when to say no. Saying no is also an answer. Learn when to stop. Listen to your body. Listen to your body. And then listen to the people you are leading, because you can hear them. Because I promise you, when you actually put your ears to the ground, you will listen, so that you don't just keep doing, but you lead effectively. You don't go sell hamburgers in a town where people are vegetarians. When you lead, so that you don't get burnt out, you don't just give. You give at the right time. So you're not going to go give hamburgers to people who are vegetarians. But if you listen, if you take care of yourself, if you know how to take a step back, if you know how to, get a mentor, get a coach to help you too, it will help you to be a better leader. And I'm so grateful that I was able to, drop a gift for you on developing the leader inside of you. So there is a link that Rachel is going to drop. Maybe she's already dropped it in the chat for you to download, so that you can start taking care of you and developing the leader inside of you, because you ought to be filled so that you can pour out into others. Never pour out from an empty cup. Continue to be filled. Read books. And yes, I'm available. You can email me. Maybe Rachel will give you my email to ask me for resources or books that you can read to develop yourself. But the one that I shared with you is a good one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bridget. That was wonderful. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to get to all of those wonderful questions. But as Bridget said, you can feel free to reach out to her for more.
Yeah.
Bridget, we really appreciate the time you took with us
Yeah.
today.
So yes, Rachel. So all the questions, if you can collect the questions and email them to me, I promise to respond to all of them. And maybe we can put them on the website, or you can find a way to send them to all the people that ask the questions. But I promise to respond to all the questions.
I
Yes,
think
I truly promise.
a lot of the questions are anonymous. But if folks want to reach out to you, that might be the easiest way to do that, if that's
Okay,
okay.
good.
Okay,
All right. Thank you.
awesome.
Yes.
Um, thank you all for attending. We really appreciate Bridget. Thank you also to Kelly and Bridget for our ASL interpretation.